And at this time, if you would all please mute yourself. That way the accumulation of background sounds doesn't overwhelm us here. There will be times when I'll ask if you have questions or want to share some of your experience, and simply unmute yourself at that time in order to speak. And then when you're done, go ahead and mute again. I'm going to open up my altar here. Grandfather Fire, Grandmother Cedar, I join you sacreds here in holy union, that you might bring forth in our midst creation in the manner of balance and harmony. Holy Earth Mother, receive us in your nurturing embrace, that our bodies be strong, healthy, and vital. Sky Father, rain your blessings upon us, that we may awaken in the joy of life. You Red of the East, knowledge bringer, awaken within us each the truth of our own spirit's purpose, path, and calling. You Yellow of the South, life bringer, provide for us the field of opportunity for the experience and expression of our spirit's truth here in our lives. You Black of the West, you woman of forgiveness and surrender, open wide your arms in loving embrace to receive those things found in our lives to be contrary to the truth of our spirit's calling. You White of the North, the old man of healing and wisdom, blow your gentle wind into our hearts. Heal us of our wounds, that we may set forth with wisdom into this world. I'm opening here with the eagle calling song, as it is the eagle who's a mythic progenitor, the bringer and founder of these ways. Creator, in the name of Eagle Brother, I ask your blessing, your protection, your sanctification in these proceedings. Monarch. As a young man, I was a fanatical anti-smoker. I mean, fanatical. I would go up to people I didn't even know on the street, rip the cigarette out from between their lips, stomp it beneath my heel, wagging my finger in their face, lecturing them. I was not a pleasant person when it came to that. And so I maintained that position. And then, as time went by, and I met my Grandpa Pena, the old man who then adopted me as his grandson, so that I could be the caretaker of his lineage, of these ways that he'd received when he was a young man. So I met him when he was 96 years old. He'd received these ways from his grandfather when he was 12 years of age. And his grandfather received these ways from his grandfather, and he from his, and back to the grandfathers and the grandmothers, back in time. Each passing along to the next generation the caretakership, the curatorship of these sacred ways. A compendium of knowledge, songs, dances, ceremonies, and meditations, approaches to spirit, ways of power, passed down through the thousands of years. As I mentioned, my grandpa, he was an old man. And so I would go over to his cabin. He lived about 30 miles from the nearest paved road, way out in the middle of nowhere, in southern Colorado, right on the San Juan River, which is the border between southern Colorado and northern New Mexico. So I would go over to his cabin on occasion, just to help him out, prepare it for the winter, winterize it a bit, or simply to help him clean. I mean, he was quite capable for most jobs, but he was an elder, so I'd go to help him out. My grandpa, he smoked profusely. It was rare that he didn't have tobacco in his hand, puffing on it. But one day when I was over there, helping him clean up, and being a young man, I just couldn't hold my tongue anymore. And so I said, Grandpa, you gotta stop smoking those cigarettes. Don't you know how bad they are for your health? His back was to me when I spoke that. He turned around, he looked at me, he said, Grandson, I'm 100 years old. What are you talking about? Well, that was true enough. He said, now let me tell you about tobacco. So I'm going to share with you. I'm going to tell you about tobacco, as my grandpa told me. He said, Grandson, there was a time long, long ago When grandfather, who was like a finger on the hand of Creator, looked upon this earth and saw us two-leggeds, saw that we had become lost in the darkness, having turned from or forgotten our ways of spirit. When grandfather, seeing us in this state, in this condition, had compassion for us. And as an expression of that compassion, he chose embodiment upon this earth. And for that purpose, he created for himself the body of a plant, an herb, the one we know as tobacco. And he did this so that whenever we might release his spiritual presence from that physical embodiment, primarily through smoking, the grandfather would carry our prayers back to the hand of Creator, causing that hand of Creator to respond in accordance with our prayers, to recreate our life and the circumstances and events of our lives in alignment with our prayers. So we're very careful with this one, because whatever we pray while we are smoking tobacco is received into the hand of Creator, causing the hand of Creator to move in accordance with our prayers. And prayers are comprised of three things: that which we carry in our heart, our thoughts, and our feelings. So whenever we smoke tobacco, whatever we carry in our heart, our thoughts, and our feelings go forth as our prayers. Whatever we carry in our heart, our thoughts, and our feelings go forth as prayers. So we be very, very careful. That each tube of tobacco has a theme of goodness, and each and every puff a thought, a feeling, a heartfelt desire is a part of that theme of goodness. So that what we create when we smoke tobacco is beauty and empowerment, blessing, healing. And my grandma Naomi, who was the matriarch of our clan, she would say of tobacco, "Grandson, it doesn't matter if it's a hand-rolled tube of the purest tobacco, a cigar, a pipe load, a Marlboro. It's all tobacco. It all carries your prayers." So we hold tobacco to be one of the most powerful and blessed gifts of Creator to us two-leggeds. In hearing this, you might very rightfully question, Well, yeah, but if that's true, then why do so many hundreds of thousands of people get cancer, heart disease, emphysema from smoking tobacco? It's true that of the approximately 2 billion people on the planet who currently smoke tobacco, some few hundred thousands do get diseases like that. And what we say to that is, it's not so much what's in here as what's in here when a person smokes tobacco that causes those illnesses and those ailments. Imagine most people who smoke cigarettes. They do so when they're in a state of anxiety, stressed out, feeding addiction. And so, as they're smoking that tobacco, oh God, this is gonna kill me. Oh God, I gotta relax, you know. Oh, I just need some peace in my life. What am I gonna do about that? Oh my goodness. And they're stressing to the max. And they're speaking negative self-talk. They're fixating upon harm and destruction, self-debilitation. What would we expect of prayers of that nature but debilitating diseases of the body, the mind, and the emotions? These are the consequences of prayers. These are the results of carrying negativity, anxiety, stress, fear, and self-denigration in our heart, our thoughts, and our feelings when we smoke tobacco. And so it's imperative to make it a blessing every time we smoke. Not just when we're officially in ceremony. Anytime you pick up tobacco, do a self-check. What's your purpose in doing so? What is the goodness that you're seeking to birth into the world through that prayer? What are your thoughts and your feelings, your heartfelt desires? Bring yourself into alignment. Aligning those three, the heart, the thoughts, and the feelings, is so critical in everything we do, but in particular with smoking tobacco. And then my grandpa, he showed me. He said, grandson, this is how you pray tobacco. And this is what he showed me. Watch, observe. I just puffed that tobacco. I didn't inhale it into the lungs. Lungs aren't designed to take that much concentrated smoke into them. They'll mess you up, man. You won't be doing that. Like leaning over a campfire and huffing that smoke. You wouldn't do that. Or, people in the western states here, when those fires are raging, they follow the instructions. They go inside and close their doors and windows. They turn on an air conditioner with a HVAC filter. Keep that stuff from being inhaled. It's dangerous. We don't inhale tobacco. We just puff. Watch again. It's not inhaled at all. So if you're going to smoke tobacco, learn how to properly smoke it. Now, applying conventional wisdom of the 21st century, the things that we have learned medically and scientifically, study of the body, nicotine is a threshold drug. And so whatever threshold you set within your body with nicotine, in order to have the experience that smoking tobacco brings, one of a peaceful settledness, a calmness. In order to activate that again, you have to reach that threshold saturation in your blood. And so if you are inhaling through into your lungs, you are creating a massively high threshold. In order to activate the same response, you have to continually reach or peak beyond that threshold. And every time you peak beyond it, you're raising the threshold a little bit higher. Whereas when you puff, the tobacco is absorbed in the capillaries within the mouth and the cheeks. And it's a very small amount of nicotine that is absorbed through the capillaries in the mouth and cheeks. And yet that sets the threshold so that the response, the nicotine response, is so low, the threshold is set so low that it never triggers addiction. And so, since my grandpa shared that with me, I was 28 years old at that time. I've been smoking tobacco since. If I'm doing a lot of ceremony, I might smoke, 10, 12 tobaccos in a day. If I'm not working official ceremony, I still utilize tobacco as part of my morning prayers and for connecting with different spirits, my muse, like that. And so I might smoke 2 or 3 during the course of a day. And then again, there'll be months when I don't smoke at all. I never get that cringe, that claw, that urge, oh, I gotta have a smoke, gotta have a smoke. No. Flying airplanes, flying, over to Europe. You know what the first thing that I don't do when I get off the airplane is? Rush somewhere to find a place where I can have a smoke. I just continue going on to where I'm going because there's no addiction. The threshold level that I've set is so low that it never triggers addiction. So my grandpa Pena has shared these things with me. He said, grandson, you might want to start smoking. I was humbled. I truly was. I was humbled. Close to humiliated. Not quite. I was humbled because what he spoke rang true. I had carried an attitude, a position based on my understanding at that time, he provided a whole new understanding, insight, and it shattered that one. And so, since that time, 41 years ago, I've been praying tobacco. And so you might wonder, of course, it would be highly improper, inappropriate, and impolite to ask. So, what's your theme on that tobacco there, Watu? Of course, you would never ask anyone that. But I can surmise you might be wondering, well, then what are you doing there? I'm speaking of my grandfather. My attention is upon him. And in deepest gratitude and appreciation, I'm sending that to my grandpa. I'm sending heartfelt appreciation. I'm speaking my thoughts, my remembrances about him, and the feelings that generates. That love, that gratitude. So every puff has been a thank you. And it has been carrying forth his words, his wisdom, and sharing it into the world with you. Because tobacco is, first and foremost, a gift. Grandfather gifted himself to us two-leggeds. Grandfather didn't gift tobacco to the deers or the eagles or the trees or the cockroaches, the fish. It was a gift to us humans, to us two-leggeds, because we were lost and wandering in the darkness, having turned from or forgotten our ways of spirit. And so grandfather provided us a means to step back on our path of spiritual connection immediately, now. Click. What a gift. What an act of compassion for us two-leggeds. And we two-leggeds, we receive that. Thank you. What a wonderful gift. However, since it wasn't granted to any of the others, and only to us, that doesn't mean that we have to keep it for ourselves. In that spirit of giving, we have the opportunity to give that connection through tobacco to others. And so, I make a gift of tobacco to the eagle. Because grandfather didn't give tobacco to the eagle, but I can. So, grandfather tobacco, this is my prayer. That you carry the prayers of eagle on behalf of eagle and his people. Like that. Now, eagle can carry that tobacco, can make it rather, eagle can send his prayers forth upon tobacco because I've just made that possible and available for him. But it doesn't mean that you have to smoke tobacco. Grandfather provided us the gift of tobacco, and that whenever we might release his spiritual presence from that physical embodiment, see that there? A little bit, a little pinch of tobacco. That he would carry our prayers. And so I might make a prayer. Grandfather Tobacco, thank you for your gifts that you have provided us. And blow that prayer into that tobacco. And place it upon the fire. And there's Grandfather carrying those prayers. I'm not smoking it. I'm just using it as an incense. It's a beautiful smelling incense. The thing with tobacco, many people will say, oh, I don't smoke tobacco, but I like stand near you when you smoke it because it smells so good. It does. But we can send our prayers forth like that. But also, we don't even have to put it on the fire. We might take tobacco and make an offering of it, say, to the drum. So I might put a little bit of tobacco on the drum. Hey, you spirits of the drum, who live and reside and abide herein, I'll offer you the sacred tobacco. Grandfather Tobacco, this is my prayer, that you carry the prayers of the spirits of this drum. Rub it around the drum. And I do the other side because it's a two-sided drum. And bless the rim, the world tree. You don't even have to smoke it. And so when we're out gathering willows to build a sweat lodge, lay tobacco down for those willows, I'll find the most beautiful, oh, that's a perfect willow for building the lodge. Yeah, oh, that's the best one. And I'll go up and I will place tobacco and say, Grandfather Tobacco, this is my prayer. That you willow sisters, you receive this tobacco for you and your peoples in appreciation. And I request permission to gather your people for the building of this lodge, a sacred place where we peoples can go to purify, to come closer to you and all of creation. This is my prayer. And I'll lay that tobacco down. And then I'll step back. And then I will go and find the willows for the lodge. I will not cut that one. That one is a sacred being. You know, it's been sanctified with tobacco. You don't choose the first and the best. You always leave that. Because in a pragmatic manner, it will continue to grow and to seed and will reproduce those beautiful willows like that. But we're not even doing it for the pragmatic reality of it. We're doing it as an honoring of their giveaway of their life to us. And so, since I've asked permission, before I cut a willow, I'll take a moment and listen. Does it say yes? Or does it say no? And if it says no, I don't care what it looks like, how good it is. I leave it. I respect its wishes. We have consensual relationship with all of the world. You know, if people men in particular, could just get that life is consensual. It's not there for us to take. It's there for us to dedicate ourselves to and receive what is gifted us. If we could just do that with our own friends and family and, partners, we'd be doing so much better off. Maybe before you, express your desire to that woman or to that man, maybe you want to offer them tobacco. Sprinkle some tobacco on their feet and say, I'm offering this tobacco for you, that you might be blessed. Just maybe, who knows? Maybe they'll go, dude, yeah. And if they go, weirdo, then, there's your answer. I've done stranger things. And the same with gathering the rocks for the purification lodge. There's lava rocks. Find the best one. That would be just the right size, right density, right everything. Grandfather tobacco. For you, rock people. I make an offering the same way. I ask permission. And only those rocks that kind of shine with a little bit of a light, or they respond, yes, please, take me. Talk like that to you. Those are the ones you receive. Gathering herbs, the same. You go out into the forest, the fields, you're walking, and you're out to gather a particular herb, and you find it and say, all right, there's the nettles, yeah. You don't just, take your machete and start chopping nettles. You stop. You make a tobacco offering. And then you ask permission. And then when permission is granted, then you receive, but you don't cut the one that you made the offering to. Whatever plant or herb, whatever rock or mineral, whatever water you gather from a spring, make an offering. Sometimes, like with the spring in particular, I don't put the tobacco in the spring. I'll roll a tobacco, I'll make a prayer for that spring and for the spirits of that spring. So there's different ways of doing it like that. So before continuing on here, you can unmute yourself if you wish. If you have any questions or comments, anything you'd like to say, share of an experience, whatever, please do. Please feel free to do that. And please, when you do, because I can't see you, all I see is my own screen at this time, unmute and then state your name and then speak.
All right, Jade, it's Karen. So is there a particular brand that would be better to use than others? Like, is there one that's more natural as opposed to processed and not as useful?
To varying degrees, I prefer this Danish export. It's a European tobacco, and by law they're forbidden to have additives and such in it. So it's a pure tobacco. I don't know that it's organic or anything of that nature. But it certainly is milder, than say American Spirit, which may tout itself as being organic and natural. But man, I find this stuff so harsh to smoke. Mm-hmm. And American Spirit washes their tobacco with ammonia, which concentrates, it draws the nicotine out of the leaf so that it's in a more readily accessible, usable form.
Mm.
And so it's like concentrating the nicotine. So nicotine levels in American Spirit are really, really high.
Okay.
So I don't care to smoke it because it's been treated like that. You know, I mean, that is purely for the sake of addicting people.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you really want to go purist, there are sources of people who grow tobacco for ceremony. And, you know, if you're only smoking for that, you know, like officially in ceremony, you might want to go with that. If it's for smoking in a more general level, because I'll have a cup of coffee and a tobacco. And my prayer there is just, I'm alive. Beautiful day. It's pure pleasure and enjoyment of life. So those tobaccos grown specifically for offerings and such in ceremony, they tend to not be so easy on the mouth and the throat, a little bit harsher. Um, I prefer, you know, to enjoy my tobacco.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's going to take some personal research. I'd say I prefer Danish export.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah. Questions, comments, screams of outrage, anything at all. What's got going on?
Hi, Jade. It's Melinda. I'm just curious if there are any times when you would definitely use one of the ways that you mentioned over another. So, are there any spirits or any situations where you would definitely smoke or definitely offer or rub in? Obviously, with a drum, you wouldn't do the fire part of it. But so, are there other ones that would be one that you would recommend to always do them in a certain way?
No,
Okay.
it's really how we feel. Actually, more typically with the drum, I will puff tobacco on it.
Okay.
I'll put it in. Um, I was just using that as an example to show you, but I would more typically puff it. Um, you know, though typically gathering herbs, rocks like that, I will leave an offering rather than a prayer smoke. Um, but you know, again, you don't have to. You could do it through smoking.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Anyone else before I proceed then? All right. I spent many years living on the Southern Ute Reservation. Member of a clan there. I was taken in to this clan because I was the apprentice of this old man, Juan Pena. And I was the one he was passing his ways on to. They didn't want to lose those ways when he passed on. And so if they hadn't adopted me, they would, that guy might just wander off somewhere else. But if we bring him in, then we still have access to those ways. And so it's kind of what happened there. So I became acculturated to a large degree to Native American culture. I'm not Native American. I have no Native American blood in me. And yet, experiencing life at a daily level. And so one of the things you learn with almost all Native peoples in North America is that when you go into somebody's house, the first thing they do after greeting you is sit you down at the table and offer you coffee and tobacco. And you receive it. You receive the coffee, and you receive the tobacco or pull your own tobacco out, roll a smoke, and smoke it. If a person were to refuse and say, oh no, I don't drink coffee, or oh no, I don't smoke, they'll be gracious, but they'll be going, what's she hiding? What's she covering up? Why won't she smoke tobacco and drink coffee with us? Because they consider it a truth-telling ceremony. Tobacco and coffee together is a truth teller. And when you are drinking coffee, smoking tobacco, you speak truth. And so they kind of look at you askance. Oh yeah, you can explain, oh, I don't drink coffee, it's too chattering on my nerves, but if you got some herbal tea, I would love it. No, I don't smoke tobacco, I keep it up, it's a modern age, people understand that. If you make a sincere expression of that, yeah, okay, no problem. But the first response is, what are you hiding? Why won't you speak truth with us? Years later, doing research, because I research a lot. I spend a lot of my time researching things. It's one of the ways in which I'm able to speak about these topics in a way that you understand. Because I can communicate in a language that you go, oh, I get that. Such as this. We have neurotransmitters and neuroreceptors in the brain. And they spark. When there's a thought, it sends a spark that jumps from a neurotransmitter to a neuroreceptor. And that completes the thought process. And this is going on in our brain, millions of times a second. Coffee causes a single neurotransmitter bud, because if you look at it, it looks like a little bud, like coming off a branch of a tree, a little bud. Causes a neurotransmitter bud to triplicate. So where there's one bud, it grows 3. Nicotine causes the neuroreceptor to triplicate. So where there was one receptor, it grows 3 under the influence, the presence of nicotine. And so when drinking coffee and smoking tobacco together, the brain is firing, is communicating at 3 times the rate of a person who is not partaking of coffee and tobacco. Think about it. Revolutions all over the world are born in the sidewalk cafes and coffee shops, where up until rather recent times, people go to drink coffee and smoke tobacco. Revolutions were born because all of a sudden people are seeing connections out in the world and different possibilities that they just couldn't access before. Coffee and tobacco together are very potent and powerful means of expanding awareness and seeing possibilities. Native people, they didn't need to know that. They just knew. Drink coffee, smoke tobacco, truth telling. They innately understood it without having, to go into the neurophysics of it. But I researched that so I can communicate that with you. I say, I research. Oh, back in the early 90s, I was researching. And I found, because I wanted to know, I found the research paper published by University of California, Berkeley, upon which the Surgeon General at that time based his statement and therefore put into effect his law regarding smoking, that smoking was cancer causing. I found the research paper that was published and all the data within it. And what it said in actuality was that 92% of the carcinogens are in the gum of the paper. That's why the original languaging was smoking cigarettes can cause cancer, not smoking tobacco. Indeed, further elements of that research show that people who smoke cigars or pipes have lesser incidence overall of cancer than those who do not smoke at all. Smoking cigars or pipes will lower your rate of cancer. But that wasn't made public. It was just smoking cigarettes give you cancer. We got to stop it. And so we are where we are today. Now, I do not in any manner, way, shape, or form recommend the smoking of cigarettes, period. Don't mistake me. I'm just sharing with you what the foundations are so that you can see what's happening. A cigarette, it is tobacco. Or rather, there is tobacco in it. And so it will carry your prayers. A pre-rolled American Spirit or Winston or Salem or Newport or whatever those cigarette brands are. There's tobacco in them. But here's what they do. They take the tobacco leaf and they grind it into a powder and they mix it with a gelling agent that turns it into this gelatinous mass, into which they stir in further addictive chemicals. Different brands use different addictive additives, which is why people who are addicted to smoking Camels and they run out of Camels and they bum a cigarette and you give them a Marlboro, they'll go, "Do you have a Camel?" "Oh, okay." And they'll take, but it doesn't satisfy their craving, their addiction, because a Marlboro has different addictive chemicals added to it than what Camel does. They want to hook you on their own brand. That's why they have brand-specific addictive additives. So they stir all that in, plus saltpeter for slow burningness and this and that. And then that gel sets firm. They shred that into these little threads that they then roll into a cigarette. So if you were to open a cigarette up, it looks like tobacco. But in actuality, it's not tobacco leaf. It's this chemical mixture that has been then shredded to make it look like tobacco. And that's what you're smoking when you're smoking a cigarette. Is it dangerous for your health? Hell yes, it is. It's loaded with chemicals, addictive agents. And people who smoke the cigarettes are inhaling. They inhale directly into the lungs. They get a massive dose of those chemicals. If you smoke cigarettes, I would highly recommend stop. Why would you do that to yourself? If you're smoking, stop inhaling. Tobacco isn't meant to be inhaled. Why is it that cigar smokers and pipe smokers have a lesser incidence of cancer? Well, for one, they don't inhale the tobacco. Pipes and cigars, both, you just puff. You don't inhale. So knowing these things expands your perspective. Now, we as Earth peoples have a whole other perspective about what's going on with this anti-tobacco campaign. And it is that those powers that be want to take away, disconnect us from our primary means of prayer. They can stop the use of tobacco under the guise of cigarettes being cancerous. Then they can take away from us that primary means of connecting with Spirit. Are we paranoid? Is that too conspiratorial? I don't know. It's just what we've observed over time, that these things go on. I'm not saying that's true. I'm saying it's highly suspicious. I'm not a conspiratorialist, so I don't go there, make declarative statements. I say, yeah, it's highly suspicious. Before I go into the third phase here, again, any questions, comments, ahas, screams of outrage, anything at all?
Karen again, I have one.
Yeah.
So I noticed when you were demonstrating puffing, you took what looked like a few deep breaths. So I don't understand how you separated that.
Well, I held the tobacco. Okay, it's like if you drink some iced tea through a straw,
Yeah.
you hold it in your mouth before swallowing. It doesn't just go right down the throat.
Right.
You suck it in, then you swallow. So imagine doing the same with tobacco, and it's not a liquid, it's the smoke. You hold it in your mouth, and then instead of inhaling, you exhale. So what I was demonstrating was the tobacco held in my cheeks, that I could breathe deeply, and you didn't see any smoke being exhaled with those breaths because it was all held in my mouth. That's what I was seeking to demonstrate there. And so the tobacco is separated, the smoke is separated from my breathing.
Did it take a long, like, how long did it take to work that out? Like, to learn how to do that?
I never had to because I didn't smoke before that.
Right.
So I never had to unlearn that. I mean, I had a number of years before smoked pot, but I had stopped. I stopped smoking pot when I was 22.
Hmm.
So that didn't carry over. So yeah, I just didn't have to unlearn it. But I've sat with people and helped them figure it out. And it doesn't take a lot. You just got to remember to do it because the habit, the pattern is to inhale.
Right.
Get out of that. Also, you will notice if I were to have inhaled that tobacco and then exhaled it, it would be a different color than tobacco that's not inhaled because it undergoes a transformation by mixing with the oxygen in the lungs,
Yeah.
and it turns into more carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide, and the nicotine has been pulled and then the toxins expelled. And so that smoke looks different and it smells different. When you think of that stinkiness, that cloying stinkiness of tobacco, that's from tobacco that's been inhaled and then exhaled. Pure tobacco, just puffed, doesn't have that smell. It's an incense, sweet smelling. Yeah.
Hey Jade, this is Jay. I just wanted to say, as someone that has smoked cigarettes in the past, as off and on when I was younger, we all kind of, anyone that's done that with coffee has always known that that was kind of, coffee and cigarettes or tobacco was such a good, like it was such a good time. Like that was the morning, that was when you got yourself right. And it was just funny how you gave the scientific explanation of why you actually feel that way. So that was really kind of like an aha moment for me. I'm like, oh, well, there's the science behind it.
Yes, it is that. Let me see if I can get these straight. I might get them cross-wired, and I apologize, but ultimately it doesn't matter. One stimulates dopamine, and the other stimulates serotonin. And so, during that time that you are drinking coffee and smoking tobacco, you're biobalancing the dopamine, serotonin in your brain. And when those are biobalanced, you're even keeled, you're grounded, you're centered, you're at peace. Think of it. Tobacco, the sacred pipe, the Tanuba, was called by outsiders the peace pipe because it brings about a feeling of peace. So I guess that's dopamine. Serotonin stimulated by the coffee. So it biobalances you, but only for that short time when you're partaking. It doesn't have a long-term carryover effect. It's just then while you're having your coffee and tobacco.
No, it was good to hear that because I'm sure anyone that's ever partaked in those two together knows that that's such a, a good feeling and kind of gets you in the right place.
Yeah, it most certainly is. Anyone have anything else you want to bring forth? Okay, I'm going to move on here. I'll share with you a little bit deeper the ceremonial aspect of praying tobacco. I want you to understand, this is not a practice or pretend that I'm doing just to show you. The only way to do this is to actualize it. There's no, we're very careful. We say, don't mess around with this one. Be very careful when you're smoking tobacco. Don't play around with it. So my theme of goodness here is a prayer of blessing as well as a sharing, a teaching. For you, for each of us here. Blessing, sanctifying, cleansing before even beginning. Tend to light tobacco from the central fire. And so in ceremony, I have a flame here. So rather than pulling up my Bic lighter, I'll light it from the central fire. A few puffs just to get it going. And then the tobacco blessing orients me in place in relationship with all of creation. Drawing the tobacco up to the top of my head, to the youngest maiden, we call her. You would call it the crown chakra, we call it the youngest maiden. Drawing that tobacco then down through each of the 7 stars within, the 7 maidens. Again, you call them chakras. Drawing down to the eldest maiden, the base, cupping the hand, drawing that earth mother fire, you would call kundalini, up into the heart, pouring it into the heart. And then extending over to the left shoulder, honoring the feminine, where everything is born of woman. And so our first honoring always is of the feminine, of woman. And then arcing like a bow and arrow bow, to the right shoulder, honoring the masculine and man from which all action is taken. And then stringing the bow. But as this is a sacred bow, not a hunting bow, we then spiral. So, youngest maiden, eldest maiden, each chakra in between. 1, 2, 3.5. Centering the heart. So I've made a spiral that is the same spiral as the arms of a galaxy, of a nautilus seashell, of the seed heads of a sunflower. It's everywhere in nature. That particular spiral, it has a mathematical relationship to it. Each arm of the spiral is a configuration, an exponential configuration of the golden proportion, 1.614. So the first circle of a spiral moving from the inside out is 1. The second spiral is wider, it's 1.614 times that 1. And the third spiral is 1.614 times the second spiral, like that. So we're putting ourselves into alignment with the natural organizing force of creation. So bring it into the heart, and then extending it to the focus, the intent of the prayer, to you. So, done properly here. Connecting myself with the organizing principle of creation through the sacred tobacco to you. And then utilizing tobacco for empowerment. To the earth, to the sky, to the east, to the south, to the west, to the north, to the center, which here is the earth soul. The earth soul is one that we communicate on a day-to-day basis with, handles cognitive functioning, pattern recognition, linear processing, short-term memory, the immune system. And then for the underworld soul, which is the dream soul, the place where we storehouse our power. It's the place of long-term memory. So you see, I'm just refined in my movements rather than, using the feather or the hand. I'm just utilizing tobacco at this point. And now for the celestial soul, the high self, the inspirational self, through which we receive spiritual guidance and direction in our lives, through which we connect to spirit. So what I've done is empowered the earth soul, the underworld soul, and the celestial soul. Bring them into a state of empowered equilibrium. So one isn't more empowered and, tipsy, top heavy. We're not trying to be oh so spiritual. We're seeking to bring our spirit, our power, our regard for life, the fecund, power that is generative, and our earth soul where we live life, drawing it together in unified harmony. So, empowering the three souls, which has the effect of giving guidance and direction to the body and the mind so that we live our lives in alignment with that empowered triplicate soul. Like a hinge, so that the hinge pin of our spirit can fit through, so that the gate of our life swings smoothly and freely. So that's what we're doing with the tobacco alignment, the empowerment. And then from there, setting our prayers forth. Grandfather Tobacco, in the name of Eagle Brother, this my prayer. That you look into the heart of each and every one of us gathered together here in presence. And bless us each with radiant, vibrant health, strength of body of each and every limb, organ, endocrine system, functioning healthily, harmoniously, with a mind clean, clear, sharp, intelligent, intuitive, our emotions deep and fluid. That each and every one of us, our soul, might be expressive through this alignment. I pray for us each, Creator, that we dwell in the abiding presence of love. Love, familial. Love, personal, passionate, romantic, and enduring. Love, the divine essence of each our own sacred hearted being. Love, in our affinity and relationship with all of creation. I pray that we dwell in the abiding presence of love. I pray for us each, Creator. Prosperity. Prosperity, the gifts of spirit made known, revealed, experienced, explored, and expressed in each our own lives. And as an element of that spiritual prosperity, a worldly abundance. That we each may have abundance in our lives, greater than just mere survival or comfort, but that we're each lifted into the nest of ease, that from within that nest of ease, we're thereby provided the further opportunity for the dedication and devotion of our lives to the furtherance of each our own spirit's purpose, path, truth, and calling. I pray for us spiritual prosperity and worldly abundance. I pray for us each, Creator, a good life, a life filled with friends and laughter, sharing the wonderment of the children around us, appreciation of the beauty and the gifts of life, of a fine meal laid before us that brings nutrition to our bodies and a nurturance of our soul thereby. That we each find pleasure, sensate, sensual, sexual, in this experience of life embodied. I pray for us each, Creator, a long life. A length of life determined not solely by the number of years, but by the richness and variety of the experiences of life. That through each experience we may thereby provide a further opportunity for each our own spirit in its experience and expression and enjoyment of life embodied. I pray for us each, Creator, a life lived in balance and harmony with all of creation. These things I pray, Creator, in the name of Eagle Brother along this tobacco road. I ask a blessing for each and every one of us here, Creator. For protection and sanctification of our lives. And for those who might seek to bring harm, injury, illness, debilitation, or death to ourselves, our families, our loved ones, Creator, bless them. Answer their prayers in a good way, that only goodness might come forth from those things that they do, have done, or might yet do. Bless us, Creator, each our own spirit, pure, unsullied, unsulliable, untarnished, untarnishable, regardless of what each or any of us may have done, through thought, deed, action, or behavior, to create a corruption of our own soul thereby. That nonetheless the spirit of us each is pure. And in that purity, that our spirit may sing its song of blessing through us, into our lives, and into the world around us. These things I pray, Creator, in the name of Eagle Brother, along this tobacco road. On this, the gathering of the people. And then, having completed the prayer, blessed it, put the fire out, and then shred it and release it from outside to the winds, so that none other can pick up that little bit of a tobacco and go pray it and add their prayers to yours for who knows what purpose. So we just make sure that we close everything up properly so that what's done is done. So the blessings, the prayers are made, expressed, shared, and brought to a close. So that is tobacco blessing. Each and every one of its constituents and elements here. So at this time, did you follow that? Do you have any questions on that? Remember, you can always review this in the recording to catch what I said and did with each of those. But for now, if you have any questions, you need clarity, whatever it may be, please speak up.
It's Karen again. I don't so much have a question as I just wanted to say thank you because you've given me the insight that I didn't have. Michael has given me a lot. And getting it from you too has added the extra oomph that I needed to understand the ceremonial and proper use of tobacco, because it's kind of been a little sore spot here in our household because I'm a nurse and worked in ICU and I took care of those patients on ventilators because they smoked their whole lives. So right. I just want to say thank you and I appreciate that you did this.
Thank you, Karen, for that acknowledgement. And that is one of the reasons I make this available, is so that people can have an understanding beyond,
Right, and it makes me like, I can't wait to get my own tobacco because I'm not at a place where I'm ready to try, puffing it, but knowing the different ways that it can be used, which Michael has shared, I just like really want to go do it now.
Yes, well, and my somewhat humorous, though sincere, counsel at this point in this teaching is, so if you don't smoke tobacco, you may want to start, which is not something you hear a lot. But I'm not at all recommending, once again, picking up smoking cigarettes and inhaling and hacking yourself at all. I'm saying keep it safe. So on that note as well, one of the things I want to address very quickly, it's very easy here, is what if you are addicted to tobacco? What do you do? How do you handle that? And the most effective way, and I have worked in the field of addiction recovery throughout my life. One of the best ways I know of relieving oneself from a tobacco addiction is to get some hand-rolled tobacco. Go find a tree. Maybe it's your tree. You already have a tree. Your grandmother or grandfather tree. And, sitting up on a hill, by a river, wherever. Lean up against it. Roll of tobacco with the theme, the intent of releasing myself from addiction to tobacco. And then you pray. Say, Grandfather Tobacco, this is my prayer. I acknowledge having misused our relationship to serve my own purposes of addiction. And I'm asking you for forgiveness and to free me of that addiction. And you pray it. And if you were not addicted, what would you be able the experience of? Free will? Because that's what addiction is the negation of your free will. So, will? I choose will. I choose right relationship with tobacco. I choose right relationship with my own spirit's path. Make it your prayer. Your own thoughts and feelings and what you need to contend with will all come up. But keep yourself forward moving. Here's my intention. Here's my heart's desire. I'm putting myself into alignment with that. Grandfather Tobacco, this my prayer. You send it out, and then you snub that tobacco, and you shred it, and you release it to the tree, and then you get up and you walk away. I have given that instruction to countless and untold people who come to me because they're addicted to tobacco and want freedom from it. And because it is such rather a surprising response, well, the way to free yourself from, addiction to tobacco is to go smoke tobacco. But if you do it sincerely, heartfelt, with your thoughts and feelings in alignment, in right relationship, that's the ticket. So, again, continuing on. Thoughts, considerations, questions, clarities needed, anything at all?
Jade, it's Carl.
Mm-hmm.
You were talking about this 3.5 spiral.
Yeah.
I've come across this 3.5 spiral a number of times in different sacred traditions, but I've never seen an explanation for what that 3.5 signifies or is. Any thoughts on that?
Well, I thought I did. It is that spiral arm of a nautilus seashell, of the galaxy, of the seed heads, of our bodily proportions. It is that primal mathematical relationship expressed in spiral form that is evident throughout creation. And so we are putting ourselves into alignment with that. Why 3.5? It's actually a little bit less than 3.5. It's 3.14.
Okay.
It's pi.
Yeah.
A lot of this work is mathematical. You know, the inner workings of ceremony and the things that we do, when we do it, why we do it, is mathematical. Shamanism is a mathematical process. And so that is another anchoring of the mystery of creation is pi. And so we combine it with that spiral and pi. So we're utilizing pi and the golden proportion at one and the same time.
Great. Thank you. Got it.
Jade, it's Melinda. I had a question, or more of a clarification for when you moved through the 3 souls on the first one, and then when you moved to the other 2, you were talking about it being more subtle. Were you still visualizing the same aspects as the first, or is that, what are you seeing when you were more subtly breathing or puffing the smoke during the underworld and celestial soul portions?
How is it more subtle?
You said something about it being more subtle, and I saw you blow or have puffs of smoke in various directions, and then you moved to the celestial soul and did the same thing, and didn't go through the spiral and everything physically. Do you only do that the first time with the?
Oh, I think I understand what you're saying. For your edification, you know, I did it with the eagle feathers the first time.
Yes.
So you can see where I was pointing. Second time, I did it with the tobacco, kind of like I did with the eagle feathers. So you could see that I'm extending to each of those directions. And then the third time, I just did it with puffing to each of the directions. Yeah, puff, puff.
Okay.
Puff. It's more subtle in the sense that it's just not as extravagant. You can do it any one of those ways, or whatever way you come up with it works for you. You know, some people might, you know, use a rattle. Some people might stand with a drum and, you know, go to the directions. Whatever works for you.
Perfect.
You know, focus your attention. So yeah, I was not saying each one becomes more subtle. I was just saying, you know, I'm just gonna not be so.
Right. I just want to make sure I wasn't missing that you were doing something different during those things, that it was the same direction, same thing, that you were just choosing that. So perfect. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah, yeah. You know, and for those who carry Chanupa, sacred pipe, I do not. It's not part of my tradition. I've certainly sat and smoked many a pipe. You know, it might hold the tobacco itself up to the directions before putting it in the pipe itself and lighting it. Another way of doing it. Though I did not get into that here, I'll just kind of mention it here. I mean, there's so much that one could do. You know, utilizing tobacco itself for diagnosing or doctoring, healing itself. So you can use the puffs of tobacco, you know, so you're holding the question, what's going on with this person? And you watch the smoke and use it as a divining field. And you'll see scenes show up in it or things that trigger an awareness, that's what's going on. Some years ago, 7, 8 years ago, when I was leading trips into the Amazon to sit with ayahuasqueros, tribal ayahuasqueros, you know, not these modern jungle juice dispensers, but going deep in with the actual ayahuasqueros amongst the people in the Amazon. The ayahuasquero that we had been utilizing, he passed on, you know, he passed away. Happens in life. And we went to another one or two, another one of those died, another one, you know, we was like, no. He acted inappropriately to one of the women in our group and kicked him out right away. Pack your bag, catch the next boat, get out of here. Just don't cotton to that at all. So we were left with, well, who do we go to? So my partner and I, who were running these journeys, he was spending about 6 months of the year down there, so he went in search, questing. And he got back in touch with me. Jade, I found somebody. You know, I've sat with him. He makes good brew. He's good. He's clear. I said, okay. Well, let me bring a select group of people who are willing to go check out this ayahuasquero, because I can't give my word to people and say, come with me, this guy's good, without my having sat with him. And so I put the word out, hey, if you're brave and willing to go help me check this guy out, come on along. And so I had about 6 people that were willing to do that. So me and my partner and these 6 people went down. And it was in a totally different area of the Amazon. We flew into Puerto Maldonado, Peru. Got off the airplane, went to our hotel, and repacked our bags, and went immediately by truck out to the port, got in a boat, and headed up river, 3.5 hours. It was raining. Even though I had a top on the boat, you know, still the rain was blowing in. It was kind of chilly. And so I was sitting there, a couple people, and behind us were the local guys who had loaded our gear into the boat. And my Spanish has never been all that good, enough to get myself in trouble. These guys were back there chatting amongst themselves. And, you know, 3.5 hours, we get up and we unload. These guys help us unload and take it to each our cabins. And we're to do the first ayahuasca ceremony that night. And so we're led down this path through the jungle. It was probably 1 kilometer to an opening in a maloca, which is a raised platform with a thatched roof. And that's where we're to do the ceremony. And so we're out there, and I'm wondering, where's the ayahuasca? You know, there's us, there's the guys who help carry the gear. And much to my embarrassment, though I didn't know, one of the guys carrying our gear began setting up an altar, and I realized, oh, that guy sitting behind me, he's the ayahuasquero. So we hadn't said not even a single word to each other. You know, we hadn't actually conversed. I think, gracias, you know, for helping carry the baggage. This guy's setting up his altar. As I'm watching, it's like, whoa, this guy knows ceremony, because being a ceremonialist, I know the signs, the indicators, and how a person takes care of things. Like, this guy knows what he's doing. All right. Because not all ayahuasqueros are ceremonialists. They just have a good relationship with ayahuasca that they share with you. This guy was a ceremonialist. So he then lights his pipe. And he's going over each person, blowing over their head. And he stands back and he's checking it out. And I can tell what he's doing, He's kind of checking in each person. And then he tells his assistant, give this person this much. Give this person this much. I'll give this person just a tiny bit. Like that. And he comes, he blows the tobacco smoke over me. Understand, we haven't even been introduced, let alone had a discussion. He blows it over me and he jumps back. He says, how long have you been shaman? And I'm like, since I was 5 years old. Turns to his assistant and says, give him a big cup. Oh fuck. I should have said, I don't know, a couple of years. But just with the tobacco, he was able to know that I was, who I was, what I was, just by reading that tobacco smoke, without any foreknowledge. When you have that right relationship with tobacco, you can diagnose, you can perceive those things like that. And then, if a person's needing healing, you can sometimes just blow that tobacco on them or on the place that needs healing, and then draw your tobacco in and maybe blow it on the spot or suction and blow it out through the tobacco and release whatever the illness or congestion is. Indeed, the same ayahuasquero, whose birthday it is today, Amador, happy birthday. Turns 49 today, or 59. 59 today. Amador, Aniceto. So, we spent 3 days together, and by this time, we were conversing, and, so what's your tradition? How do you, shaman talk. Shop talk. And as we were talking, at one point I said, so Amador, may I? I said, what's this wound on you? He says, been trying to heal it, can't seem to heal it. And I could see that there was more going on than just a simple wound. I said, Amador, if you need help, he said, I could use some help, Jade, they call me down there. Jade, I could use some help. I said, well, when we get back to the hotel, come to my room and I'll do a treatment. So we get back there. And he comes over that evening before dinner. But when I travel, I'm taking people to spend time with a shaman. I'm not being the shaman. I'm not there to work ceremony and be the shaman. I'm just a guy helping people out, being the bridge to another culture. And so I don't carry my drum down there. I don't carry my implements and my feathers and all of that. And yet here was this guy asking me for help. I said, well, I got water and I got tobacco. Good enough. And so I utilize tobacco to cleanse and bless him, kind of like I do cedar here. I use tobacco for that because tobacco will carry prayers. You say, grandfather, tobacco. I'm asking you to cleanse and bless. So normally I say, grandmother cedar, cleanse and bless. Grandfather tobacco, it will carry my prayers, whatever I set it to do. And then I wadded up some tobacco, put it in my mouth, took a little bit of water, just and then start suctioning on his skin on that wounded part, and suctioned out, and then blew the tobacco and the match into the glass of water, and from the tobacco separated and dropped out these 3 little shards of quartz crystal. And he's like looking at it, looking at me. What's that? I said, that's what's been causing you problems. I said, there was a woman who came to you a couple of years ago. She wanted to get pregnant. She couldn't get pregnant. There was some kind of curse on her set by the woman who wanted her husband, but he married you instead. And she hired somebody to put a curse on you, on her, so she couldn't get pregnant. He thought, yeah, I remember her. I remember that, yeah. As well. That shaman that she hired, because you interfered in his medicine, so it made it seem like he was ineffective. He tried to stop you. So he sent those crystals into you to steal your life force, your medicine. As I can see him, a thin headband with a single macaw feather sticking out of it up front. He goes, oh, those Matawinka, they live up north of us. Those Matawinka, those shamans, they dress like us. That's the one we did up there. And so then I went and took care of those crystals and buried them properly. And so just with tobacco, you could doctor a person like that. You got to be creative, got to use what you have on hand, but it's all about that relationship with tobacco, knowing how to do it. So I'm sharing with you. I'm not saying, well, do this and do that. I'm saying, this can also be done. Or you could do this. You could diagnose, you could doctor, you could treat. There's all kinds of things you can do with tobacco, because tobacco is the most potent, powerful spiritual medicine given us. Tobacco. I mean, ayahuasca is wonderful, but you smoke tobacco with ayahuasca. Tobacco is what activates it. You smoke tobacco with the ceremonies. It's almost always tobacco involved. It's a primary. So anyway, I want to share a little bit of further insight of tobacco and its nature of relationship and what you can call upon it for. Questions, comments, anything at all? Okay, before doing the closing ceremony, one other short topic regarding tobacco. I last returned from living in Costa Rica March 1st. And I wasn't smoking tobacco down there. I still wasn't smoking tobacco when I got back. I mean, like I say, I might spend months and months without smoking tobacco. Not a biggie. But with the COVID going on and all of that, and I take my precautions, I'm very COVID conscious. And I do my research. And I saw something in one of the online news sites, not Breitbart or anything wacko like that, standard, it was like Reuters, where the equivalent of here in the United States, the National Institutes of Health in Spain, noticed that consistent tobacco smokers had 80% fewer cases of COVID than non-tobacco smokers. And that's significant. People who consistently smoke tobacco had 80% lesser chance of contracting COVID than those who don't smoke. And they were like dumbfounded and say, well, but you know, tobacco in the lungs and da. And so they actually did what you're supposed to do as scientists. You do research, you figure it out. And they found out that smoking itself provides absolutely no added value benefit to preventing you from getting COVID. In fact, it makes your lungs weaker and makes you more susceptible. But minus inhaling, that the presence of nicotine's associated alkaloids in the system protected the cells from being attached to by the COVID virus. They found that the most effective way was through ingestion of tobacco. So tobacco tea or such, which is not untypical amongst indigenous people. But they said smoking tobacco and the saliva carrying the tobacco down into your stomach and what was absorbed by the capillaries in your mouth and cheeks. That amount and that means of transmission of the tobacco were effective means of protecting the body from COVID. Like, cool. Not too long after, France came out with the exact same findings. They did their studies and they found exactly the same thing and they published their research. Well, that was good enough for me. It's like, okay, Spain, France, sounds good. And so I started smoking again. I mean, I hadn't stopped smoking, I just hadn't been smoking. And so I got a can of tobacco and I started making part of my daily prayers again in a manner that I've described. So tobacco can also be healing in that manner. So multiple avenues, approaches, well-being, health, vitality, empowerment, generating, manifesting goodness in life through proper relationship, right relationship with grandfather tobacco is there and available. So again, one more time before closing here, anything you would like to speak on, address, question, anything at all, please feel free to speak up. When nobody speaks up, I always wonder, did I leave you in the dust somewhere? Or did I really just do that good of a job of explaining? Particularly if Karen didn't speak up.
You really did that good of a job.
Oh, thank you. Okay. Okay, I'm going to then do the closing song, which is a song of appreciation. For it is through appreciation that we anchor our blessings in life that then continue to flow through us and into the world about us. After the closing song, I'm going to stop the recording. I ask that you remain on just briefly, just so that we can have a final conversation. You can all unmute yourself at that time so we can openly have a conversation like that. Yo hey, oh no, hey no. Yahweh, Yahweh, no, Yahweh, Yahweh, no, Yahweh, 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 no, Yahweh, Yahweh, no, Yahweh, Yahweh, no, Yahweh, 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 no, Yahweh, Yahweh, no, Yahweh, Yahweh, no, Yahweh, 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 no, Yahweh, Yahweh, no, Yahweh, Yahweh, Creator, in the name of Eagle Brother, by way of this tobacco road, I thank you for this breath of life. And for the breath of life of each and every one of us gathered together here in sacred circle here today. A life resplendent with blessings and joy and well-being. One out.